thoughts in your mind that you aren't good enough, that you'll never be successful? If so, you're not alone. I've had those thoughts playing in my mind ever since I took the leap to become an entrepreneur. It's a dirty, dark secret that no one likes to talk about, as the glamorization of becoming an entrepreneur is shown in the media. I realized that in order to succeed, I needed help. We all do. So I decided to go all in on myself, spending thousands of hours in the trenches, reading, joining groups, listening to podcasts, hiring coaches to develop a bulletproof morning routine for success. Join me on my journey as together we build our morning fire to ignite our lives as entrepreneurs. My name is Jeff Wickersham, and this is the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast.
Welcome to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs show. I am extremely excited to have Whitney Sewell on the show. Whitney is the CEO and founder of LifeBridge Capital. Whitney, welcome to the show.
My pleasure, Jeff. Honored to be on your show.
Absolutely. So let's get right into changing state. I know I do this with all my guests. We talked a little bit before backstage. You've got a little one sleeping, so you don't have to do the power boom, but you can just do the mannerisms and get that energy amped up. So we're going to do 3 power breaths in through the belly, up through the chest. As we do, we'll raise our hands above our head. Go ahead and breathe in and out. Good. Another breath in and out. Good. Final breath in and out. All right. I'm going to count down 3, 2, 1. Like I said, you don't need to scream. I'll give a little high pitch yell in 3, 2, 1, and boom. There you go. There you go. Love getting the energy level up. Nothing great can be done without energy, excitement, and enthusiasm. So Whitney, eat, sleep, and breathe, morning habits, routines, rituals. What are a few things you do first when you wake up that set you down that path towards success?
This has changed over the last number of years, Jeff, for sure. At the moment, and I'm constantly like thinking about that morning routine. My wife and I actually talked this morning. She was talking about even restructuring her morning routine again as well. But just thinking through, how do we itemize or get the most out of that time and make it as most efficient as possible? A few things we do now. One, we do love to exercise or to be active, but more recently, it's a long story, but recently got back into horses. We had to give it up for a while, growing the business brand. And I've actually started riding a horse early in the morning. And that's I love that. Like, that helps me. I love the work, and that's some of my exercise as well. But earlier than that, I will be, as soon as we get out of bed, we're drinking water and we're having coffee often as well. We are coffee drinkers, but bulletproof coffee, by the way, lots of butter in there, lots of raw milk, and usually drinking that while we're reading. We'll be reading scripture and just praying together often. It's been a time over the years that's been great for my wife and I to be able to connect when I was working just an extreme amount of hours, working full time and also getting the business going. It's just been a crucial time for my wife and I to connect and pray together and think about our day. But also, as past that, I'm usually have some kind of book that I'm reading as well that's more educational. That's it may be something that's inspiring or something that I'm trying to learn more about at that moment, or maybe I'm speaking at an event coming up and I'm trying to learn about specific things. I want to make sure that I share with people, and so that's what a lot of that time is for. I'm taking notes. That is the time of the morning too where it's good for me. I try to also have what we call thinking time, and it's just, that is when my mind is going and like having the most new ideas as well. And so it's often that I try to, sit down just with my, actually I have an electronic pad now, but a notepad where I can write things down. Cause once I get them off my mind, right, they're there, then I can move on to the next thing. That's been crucial. But at a high level, that's kind of how the morning goes. If I'm not riding, then I will do some kind of exercise or something like that. Try to, because I do love getting that energy going and just the blood pumping, early in the morning.
Love it. And so, riding horses, what sparked you to get back to it? Was it something, obviously growing the business, you missed and you said, hey, one, you can be out in nature, right? And you're connecting with a powerful animal, right? And tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, and it's part of my overall story. But I grew up. I mean, since I was a little boy, I dreamed of riding horses and being a cowboy, right? As a little boy. And I finally got to the point where I was training horses professionally, selling horses for more money than I ever imagined. I was doing clinics all over the country and teaching lots of lessons. And I mean, it was doing, but while working full time. And then finally, I'd had some real estate at the time, but nothing like we do now. And finally, my wife and I were walking on the beach one fall and said, you know what, you can't keep this up. It's not worth it. And we decided that commercial real estate was going to be a better use of our focus, long term, and obviously for income and building wealth and as a strategy, all those things. And so we sold the farm, Jeff. We decided that that's just what we had to do then to be completely committed. So that was a hard day for us when my wife and I pulled out of our farm for the last time, and we sold it, but we knew it took that level of commitment and sold everything related to horse training. And that was hard for me. I mean, because I had spent so much time building that brand and that business. And so it was never my plan to stay out of it completely, just never to spend that much time training again. Obviously, we're doing other things now, but to have a horse again, obviously, so I can ride some, my boys can start riding. And it's been great for me and my boys to have purposeful time together as well.
Yeah, love that. And the other piece I love that you commented on was thinking time in the morning. And I always say, hey, when you wake up, don't just thrust yourself into work or negative news or social media. Your mind and your body is freshest right when you wake up. So that's a great time, great opportunity to take advantage of some creative thoughts, thinking about things because you are refreshed from hopefully a good night's sleep. So love those pieces. So your story, your journey as an entrepreneur, I'd love to hear about it. Obviously owning the horses, had a day job, hustling there, moved into commercial real estate. Tell a little bit about your backstory for the audience, and we'll dive into a little bit more of why it's so important to understand your why before becoming an entrepreneur.
Yes. And so it goes back to March of 2001. And I say March because that's before, our nation was attacked, right? In September of that year. And in March, I decided to join the military. I just thought it was the right thing to do. I wanted to serve. I was 17 at the time and thought, yeah, that's, it's just the right thing. And so a friend of mine and I signed up at the same time. And we had no idea, we'd be going to war in just a very short period of time. And we did. We spent a year in Iraq. And that was obviously a big learning experience. I grew up in a one stoplight town. There's just not much that happens there. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't get out of there. And they, it's like all they can see, right? Is that town. And it's scary outside of there, right? That big world out there. So, but the military helped me in many ways. And obviously lots of experiences in the military, boot camp, all those things. But then spending a year in Iraq, unfortunately, not everyone in my squad made it home. I'm very thankful the Lord allowed me to come home, protected me. And but Jeff, one thing I say the military taught me is to have that never give up mentality. And it's just not an option to give up. When you're in combat or other people are depending on you to perform, it's just not an option. And it's also helpful for me even now to reflect on that. When you're an entrepreneur, different things are happening, things that may not be going well. But there's not many days, if any, as an entrepreneur that even compared to how bad some of those days can be, and we still made it through that. And you still have to push through. And so it's helpful to think of that. But I came home and I didn't know what I was going to do for a career, and law enforcement seemed like a great transition. And actually, I got hired with Kentucky State Police, five positions out of 1,200 applicants. I was blessed with one of those. Loved working the road as a police officer. I loved the uniform, the structure, the discipline, the service. However, we got married about a year in, and then my wife, Chelsea, and I just passed each other in the hallway the first whole year of marriage. And so, right pretty quickly then we could see, okay, this is just not what is best. And, making, 30, 35,000 a year, maybe 38, if I worked all the overtime I possibly could, the worst schedule. And I just thought, okay, I've got to do something else. I had no college. I wasn't sure what I could do. And so in came real estate. And it was about 2009. I thought, okay, here's a way for me to supplement my income, and wanted Chelsea to be able to stay at home. We had children, but it was going to be hard to do on 30, 35,000 a year. And so I thought, okay, if this many people have built wealth in real estate, Jeff. Hey, I can do something, right? I can do something to supplement my income. And so our eyes were open to real estate, what other people had done, started reading a few books, bought 2 triplexes, made a ton of mistakes. And we were self-managing. We were newly married. We were living in a house that we were remodeling, big mistake. But remodeling that, working a horrible schedule, trying to self-manage some apartments. It was a disaster to say the least. Finally, though, I was still looking for another way to make more income or maybe a career path change. And I became a federal agent.
Okay.
And the Lord allowed me to meet a guy that was already doing that position. I didn't even know it existed, but he helped me through the entire hiring process. That moved us to Virginia, where in Roanoke, where we still live now. I was a federal agent for 9.5 years. But while being a federal agent, I also got back into horses. I was training horses full time. And again, I shared part of that story. But eventually, I got more into real estate as well. And my schedule, Jeff, was so full. I mean, I was training horses till midnight, many nights, up again in the morning, doing it all over again. Federal agent, come in, change clothes as fast as I can, run to the arena, give lessons, ride horses. I mean, it was just madness. Finally, my wife and I were just like, okay, this is not what we envisioned, right? And we need to make a change. And it meant, selling the farm. And we were also, when we moved to Roanoke, we heard a pastor talk about how they had adopted and how there were over 150 million orphans in the world, how it can cost 40 to 60 grand to bring a child home through adoption. We had never been exposed to adoption before. I don't know that I'd ever even known anyone that had adopted or been adopted. However, when he talked about that, my wife and I, on our way, it was still pretty newly married. We were like, well, why would we not adopt? I mean, it just seemed obvious to us that we would do that. And so within a week, we turned in our application to adopt from Ethiopia. 2 years later, our first son, Samuel, came home from Ethiopia. A year after that, our second son, Elijah, came home through adoption. And then we also have a daughter now, Eden Joy, that's 2 years old, who came to our family through adoption. And so each of those stories of adoption, it's a very difficult path. And it is a roller coaster of a ride to bring a child home through adoption. I'm very upfront about that, but I also say it's so well worth it. It's so well worth it. But it's not easy. And it keeps most families from adopting, just the price to get through the process alone. We talk to families almost every week now who say, Whitney, that's more than I'm making a year. So our goal at this time, remember, we were selling the farm. We knew right then that we wanted to have a mission bigger than just building a real estate business. And so we knew that eventually we wanted to start a foundation, and we were going to commit half of our personal profits to the foundation we would start that would help families through the adoption process and financially as much as anything. And so, fast forward a couple of years, a lot's happened during that time, but we sold the farm. We started a daily podcast. I've recorded over 1,000, daily shows now. And it's been, I was still working full time. I had 2 days a month. I was off the federal agent position, and my team knew that I had to record 12 to 15 shows in one day, just back to back to back to back to back. And it was just insane for about 2 years. And finally we had enough momentum where I could leave the day job and do real estate full time. But it was very difficult 2 years, to say the least. Happy to get into any of that. But the Lord has just blessed our business. Now the foundation is going as well. We're helping families, financially through the adoption process. And it's just amazing to see that happen. But that mission, and I call my family kind of my secret team members. You don't hear people talk about their family much as they're becoming entrepreneurs. And I could not have done it without my bride and my children as well. I had to paint that vision for them too. They knew they wouldn't see dad till like Sunday most weeks, even though I was at home, as crazy as that sounds. And so having that mission helped all of us to see where we're going and to stay on track.
Love it. And first and foremost, thank you for your service, right? That's incredible. And you hustled for 2 years, right? Having that conversation. Hey, this is what it's going to take. But eventually with that momentum, you'll be able to break through. And I love your mission. I quite honestly was not aware it takes 40 to 60K to bring a child home for adoption. So love how deep rooted that mission is in your DNA. And let's get into entrepreneurship and why it's so important to understand your why before you jump in.
Yeah, love that question. Most don't, right? And I'll mentor people, or we'll talk about this. People ask me to speak about this at groups, masterminds, because I feel like that's we went from raising, within about 2.5 years, Jeff, the first deal I raised capital for, we raised $250,000. Now we're raising like 10 million in just a few hours. And people say, well, how's that even possible? And I say, well, I didn't plan it this way. I didn't know this from the beginning. However, I've always been mission first. And even every investor conversation, when I would be at a large conference, and you think about this, it doesn't matter what kind of conference you're at, if it's real estate, if it's whatever the topic of the weekend is. If it's real estate, let's say there's 300 people there, 500, 2,000, whatever, they're all talking about real estate. They're all talking about their deals. How many people are going to remember you after you leave that weekend, right? If you're talking about real estate as well, I mean, it's going to be hard, right, for you to stand out. And so, like I said, I didn't plan it this way, but what I started realizing is people say, well, what do you do, right? Everybody says that at a conference. But I would lead with, hey, you know what, we have a foundation where we're helping families adopt children, and we've committed half of our personal profits to that. But we do that through commercial real estate. So our investors get to invest in commercial real estate, make amazing returns, get the tax benefits, while also knowing that they're helping us in this mission of bringing children to their forever family. And all of a sudden, Jeff, I mean, it's like, they have to hesitate just a second and say, no, wait a minute, what? Right. And then the focus is then on our mission. Right. They've been talking about real estate all day to so many different people. And now it's like, well, wait a minute, tell me about that again. What was that about adoption? And then I get into our adoption stories, and they see that passion, right? They see something different than just business. And so there is a deeper connection, Jeff, that's made than if you were just talking about your next real estate deal, right? Well, the last person they were just talking to was talking about their real estate deal, right? And so having that mission first has helped us to move fast in many ways. Not just the investor conversations, but even our team. Your investors and your team want to know that they're a part of something bigger than just making money. Even though they think they want to make more money, they do, and they need to be paid well, right? But I'm just saying they really want to be a part of something bigger than that, and that enjoyment that they get just motivates them to do so much more than ever before. And it's been incredible to see that happen.
And the real estate really started in 2017, correct? Like that's when it was kind of full time. And one of the things we talked about backstage that I'm a huge fan of is that take action mindset. So explain a little bit around that and how you built the team in such a quick time.
So taking action, I had good mentors as well. One specifically, and I'm so thankful that I did. When I started thinking about a daily podcast, I knew somebody else in our industry that had a daily podcast, saw his success. And Jeff, it was as simple as, well, wait a minute, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel here. It's I see what's happened for him. Let's just go make it happen. That's just the way I looked at it at the time. Like, let's just figure it out. Let's just move forward. We'll do it. Right. And so I went to two big conferences, and there were two people individually that I had dinner with that are very big names in our industry. And I was sharing with them about the daily podcast, and both of them said, Whitney, you're crazy. Why would you do that? And consider, I mean, I'd already heard that so many times, and I'd already said, no, we're moving forward so many times. However, considering who these two people were, I thought, okay, wait a minute, maybe I should reconsider this. And however, I shared that with my mentor, and he was like, well, that's why you have to do it, because it's too much work for most people. Right. So I was back on track then. We got to move forward. I said, okay. So doing the daily podcast, though, I call it like overcommitting. And I didn't see that then. I didn't know the level of commitment it was going to take. And I'm thankful that I didn't then, because I may not have done it. But overcommitting pushed me in ways, Jeff, that I never imagined. I had to build a team. And the podcast is just one example of us doing this. But if I had tried to do a weekly show, I would have tried to have done everything: the audio, the video, record, editing, the show notes, putting it on social media. I would have thought, no, I can get it done. I can save some money. I can figure out how to do it. However, I know that I would have gotten behind. I would have gotten frustrated. The quality would have been poor, and I probably would have quit. However, doing 7 times that much, I knew that I couldn't do those things. It was not an option. So I knew from the beginning that I had to build a team. I had 4 virtual assistants from all over the world, including another one that was in the States. They helped me manage all of that. And that's changed over the years now. And I actually have it back in-house now. But we had to build a team from the very beginning so we could scale and we could keep that going. Like I said, they knew they had to schedule at least 12 to 15 interviews for me in one day, 2 days a month, if at all possible. And it just took that level of commitment to keep that going while working full time, while doing deals, or doing our third adoption process. It was quite intense, to say the least.
Yeah, I can imagine, and just you telling the whole scenario and going through, hey, what's your full-time gig with the horses, with the pot? You were running very fast, and I love the mindset of just taking action, right? And so many times people wait for, oh, I need to be motivated, or I need to be inspired, or I'm not going to start my new diet till Monday of next week. No, take action now, because then you'll get motivation, you'll feel progress, and then you want to take action even more. And it snowballs around that. So many people just pause and wait for that motivation or that inspiration, and it never comes. So if you can take action, that is the key part of the process.
I would add to that the show is called the Real Estate Syndication Show, right? But I had never done a syndication when we started the podcast. And so I was even criticized some about that, right? Like, who's this guy starting a real estate syndicate? He's never even done one before, but look at it now, right? So you have to take action, and you got to be ready to be criticized by those who are not going to take as much action.
Correct. And I love your story about, those two big players that said you're crazy. And I always take that as a badge of honor, and I know I'm in the right path if people say you're just nuts, you're crazy. And I'm a huge fan of David Goggins, and I just got a shirt recently that says I'm not crazy, and then on the back it says I'm just not you, right? And that's just an amazing message. So where can people learn a little bit more about LifeBridge Capital, as well as follow you, Whitney?
Yeah, obviously lifebridgecapital.com. We'd love for you to connect there. You can email me, Whitney at lifebridgecapital.com, or anyone can call or text me at 540-585-4338. We'd love to help anyone.
Awesome. Whitney, thank you so much for being on the show.
My pleasure, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have an amazing rest of your day. Rise, fight, love, repeat. Get after it, and I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for listening to the Morning Fire for Entrepreneurs podcast. You now have the knowledge, but without action, knowledge is useless. Choose to act. Choose to step into your greatness and unlock that hero inside of you. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and leave a review so more entrepreneurs can hear this message. If you absolutely love this podcast, which I hope you do, then share it up with someone you know who might see benefit from it. Become that beacon of change, and together we can impact the world.